great. And Matt and Courtney, if you guys just want to jump in anytime you see something in the chat, because I typically don't monitor that as we get going.
Nope, Matt and I will be monitoring that for the whole time. So
perfect. And anytime you guys have something to add to about the product, by all means, jump in. So hi, everybody. My name is Pamela Silberman, and I'm the lab manager and an adjunct faculty for the Department of Health Sciences at Weber State University here in Utah. And I think it'd be helpful before we dive in today's topic to give you guys a little bit of background about how our department runs our anatomy and physiology classes. So we teach an integrated approach with anatomy and physiology taught together over 2 semesters. So we have an introduction to anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. So we find that's a really good approach for students. The students who take our courses are typically headed into the allied health professions. So nursing, dental hygiene, respiratory therapy, rad tech. And we find that integrated approach of teaching them where a body part is and how it works at the same time is really well suited to our students. And since those professional programs are admitted on a very competitive basis, we also try as a department to keep our courses very consistent. So with the competitive application process, we don't want there to ever be a situation where taking an anatomy and physiology course from one professor is easier than another professor, because they are awarded points and their applications are weighted based on their grades in our courses and their science courses in general. So all of the faculty in our department teach an identical curriculum using the exact same resources. We have the same assignments with the same assignment due dates every semester, and we use even an entirely identical test bank for our tests and have the same identical testing policies and grading policies and everything like that. So our courses are very, very consistent. And a little over a year ago, we started looking at being able to reduce our course costs for students by completely eliminating a publisher. So we developed as a department our own study guide, which basically functions as a textbook using open source materials and open source images, so that our students no longer needed to purchase an expensive textbook that then we would pick and choose from. So we really narrowed it down to exactly what we think a student going into the allied health professions needs to know, and adapted our own materials for use for our course. So our students used to pay close to or slightly over $300 for a textbook bundle. And now the only course material that they pay for is their subscription to Visible Body Courseware. So as we were developing those learning materials, we realized that we were going to need something to supplement those computer programs that are usually a part of a publisher's textbook offering. And it just so happened that Visible Body kind of fell into our lap and was the perfect product to fill that niche. So our sales rep, I joke about it with her all the time, because she came into our department chair's office and was pitching the product, and I was the most skeptical person in that room. I was absolutely like, there's no way you're going to wow me. There are a billion apps out there that are free, that people can dissect away parts of the body. And of course, she wanted to show us, I think it was either the muscles or the skeletal system. And I was like, of course you do. That's what every publisher and rep wants to show. Everybody can have a gee whiz bang wow presentation showing off the musculoskeletal systems, but what else do you have? And it didn't take very long into her presentation for us to see that the capabilities of Visible Body and courseware specifically were so far above and beyond what any kind of a free app was going to be able to offer us, and it fit the niche perfectly. We were also super fortunate in that we started this about a semester in advance of COVID. And so unlike a lot of schools who were scrambling to find an online adaptable resource for their A&P labs, we were already well underway with the development. So it was nice to be able to just slide that right in when our university went basically all online due to COVID. So that's a little bit of the background of kind of how we found and started using Visible Body. And now we're in the same situation that I'm sure a lot of you are, where this fall we'll be returning to campus, which means face-to-face offerings. And we had been thinking about that in advance, but now we've really been diving into how we're going to integrate the visible body product into our face-to-face lab offerings. And so through that, I've done a bunch of trial and error and made some mistakes along the way that maybe I can help you guys all avoid. So I think that's really the intention of today's office hours. So I'm going to show you guys first off my courseware screen. And if at any point you guys don't see my screen or what I'm talking about, please just come off mute, Matt or Courtney, and yell at me and let me know. So here is my courseware, my courses page, which if you have a little bit of familiarity with visible body, you'll know that this is where you're going to see the courses that you've created within courseware. So remember, I mentioned our department really values consistency. So we teach the same A&P courses, and likewise, we're going to offer the same anatomy and physiology labs to go along with those courses. So I've found that courseware is really adaptable to what we call the template model. So in our learning management system, we use Canvas, and we create a course template that then every instructor copies for their A&P courses. And we wanted to be able to do the same thing within visible body, which I think we've found a way to do. We'll roll it out this fall and see if it works as well as I think it's going to. But we have been using it for the online courses in this template format, so I don't expect that we're going to run into any problems. So my first little tip that it took me a minute to even think about needing to do is if you're going to create a template course of any kind really in courseware, so whether it's for your main course or the lab courses like we have here, remember, it's going to be alphabetizing your courses alphanumeric. And so anytime I make a template, I always title it using the letter A in front of it so that my templates always pop up at the top. So you will see I have an abundance of courses because I'm not only in all of the courseware courses for our online and face-to-face faculty-driven courses, but we also offer concurrent enrollment to high schools. And so I'm in all those courses as well. So maybe that won't be as valuable to you as it is to me, but I like to have all of my templates right up top. So we'll jump into one of our online courses first. So this is currently titled Summer because this was the template I used to build our summer online labs. And you can see I have all of my folders with all of the visible body assignments. And of course, your rep will show you the basics of how to do that. And Visible Body has the in-depth training on how to make assignments. And there's a bunch of webinars about that. So I'm not going to go into detail about that today. But you can see for our course, starting in Unit 4, we require the students to start using Visible Body. So we have a little Getting Started folder that has a document that's created by Visible Body, and then I've made a little video that I put in there, and we make the students take a quiz to show they're ready to get going in Visible Body. And then starting in Unit 4, they'll have a lab folder for each of the labs. And then same thing with our second semester course, there's more assignments in there because they just start with that right off the bat. So each of the folders has their assignments and they're ready to go. So instead of having to create this course over and over for each faculty member, I've just created this as a template course that now I can copy to any professor. So I think this will be a good point to show you a little kind of, I call it a semester starter. And let me change my screen share here. There we go. Okay, and do you guys see the document that says course title on it? Great. So if you're going to be creating a template and then copying, I would say probably more than 2 courses somewhere, it's a good idea to just generate some kind of little document in Excel to keep track of the items that do have to be redone when you copy a course. So Courtney has this document that she can send out to you guys or put it in the chat or get it to you guys so that you can have this to see the items that you do need to be aware of that need to be redone when you copy a course in courseware. So the first thing is I go to our course enrollments and I just list in this course section every course that I'm going to need to generate. So I put the professor's name, I put their, let me pull this up. I put their name, I put what semester it's going to be, the year, the course information, whether it's an online course or a face-to-face course, and then our course registration number or whatever kind of course ID that you use. So I generate this list, and then of course it has all of these blank checkboxes so that I can fill that in as I'm copying the courses. Okay, let me go back here. I do this. Hang on, we're going to make this so I don't have to keep resharing, I think. There we go. There we go. Okay, so once I have that generated in Visible Body Courseware, and you guys can see my courseware screen. Yes, okay, perfect. I'll go to the template that I want to copy. So we have a template for online courses and a separate template for face-to-face courses because the online labs need to be longer to equal the duration of the face-to-face labs, but the face-to-face assignments in Visible Body can't be as long because the students are also going to come to campus and spend 2 hours hanging out with us. So they just have fewer assignments in them, which is why we need to have 2 templates. But if I want to copy this summer online lab to be a fall online lab, I'm just going to go to the course options and I'm going to make a copy. So you could send a copy to an instructor, but one way our department functions is also having this lab manager position that I am in that role of. So what's nice is if you have a lab manager or a lab aide or some kind of position that can be taught and assigned to perform this function, then you end up with someone like me or your lab manager or lab aide who's on all of your courseware courses as well as the faculty member who's teaching the course. So you can imagine just having 2 people in each of those courseware courses provides that backup for somebody being out of town or having an emergency when a due date needs to be changed. I work as the backup and I can take care of that for the other faculty who are teaching the course. So we always choose to make a copy. And in here is some of that information off of our little checklist that we can start to change. So up here, I'll make the course name match that information that I recorded on my little semester starter sheet. And I'll put that information in, and then I'll go over here and delete the copy. So we'll just go in here and call this a sample. And then I would hit save, and then it's going to generate a copy that will appear on my courses list. So at that time, once my copy is generated, I actually need to go in and change all of that other information that we have on that little Excel sheet. So I'll go first into the drop-down menu over here and edit course information. That's where the majority of that will be done. So I can change the name if I forgot to delete the word copy after or something like that. I always double check that the time zone's correct. Here I can enter my start date, and I'll show you where I have that on our little Excel sheet as well. I can enter the course ID here so that it will populate for the students and they know they're in the right spot. And then when you make a course copy, you actually do have to go back in and add your logo each time. So I have that on my checklist so I don't forget to add the logo back into the course. Once I do that, I can go into my new course and I can use the bulk editing feature to change the remaining items that are listed on our Excel sheet. So when you copy a course in courseware, it does make all of the assignments automatically unpublished. One thing that it does do though, which is amazing, when we went to copy the course, it did have a first assignment due date box. When you select that, it automatically forwards ahead ahead based on your previous spacing, the due dates for your new semester. So if there is a little bit of tweaking or adjustment to be done, you're already at least in the same month. You're not trying to go in and enter tons and tons of due dates, but of course the bulk editing feature does make that easy if you need to do that. So let me pull back up this sheet and we can see, and do you guys see the Excel sheet? Okay, good. I think I made it so I don't have to keep sharing over and over. So on my little semester starter, one thing I do is I jot down the lab numbers. So this is the second semester of our course, so labs 11-1 through 20. And I'll put the due date that we've already decided as a department for each of those labs. That makes it handy so that when I pop back into my bulk editing feature, I can select each of those labs. I can check the due date that Courseware automatically generated for me. And if I need to change that, I can just change the due date or release date here. I do that for each of the labs. And then the last step would be to go in and publish all of those assignments within that course. So I've checked to make sure that my logo is still appearing, that I've checked that off the list, and that I have all of the correct instructor information here. So you'll notice across the top here for this course, it lists me, and it's going to put me first because I'm the person who copied it. And then it will show who the faculty member is once they complete the next important steps. So after I've copied my lab template, I've adjusted all the due dates, made sure the logo's in there, published the assignments. The next step is to get the correct faculty member, or if you're using lab instructors to do this, into your course. So I go down to the Invite People tab, which a lot of people use to send out to their students, but we're using a single sign-on Canvas integration at this point, so we never send this to students. But it is that same link if that's the process you're familiar with. I copy this link and I have just a standard email that I send to the faculty member. I ask them to click on that link and then they go into Canvas and link the visible body course to their Canvas course. When we go to My Courses, that's what you're seeing with these little red logos on the book. Is these are courses that have been linked to our learning management system into Canvas. And I have that listed as a checkbox on my semester starter as well. So I always come back before the start of the semester, and I realized I needed to do this after the first semester when we had a couple faculty who forgot and then sent a bunch of students off to call our campus help desk. And so that's why I ended up adding this. But I always will come back to the course that I've copied, not the template per se, but I make sure that the professor's name is up here because it won't show up there until they have actually clicked that link. Now I also can see that they've clicked the link, and I'll also be able to see the boxes turn red, and I know that they've associated the course with their learning management system, and that's kind of the final check, and then I know everything is done. I also, just in case I want to be able to talk to visible body tech support, I also like to copy down this visible body course ID number that gets automatically generated every time you create a course in Courseware. So I just jot that down also, so I have a list of all of the courses that I've generated for the department for the semester. So let's pop back down to here.
Pamela, before you continue on, we actually have a question.
Great.
So this is from Louise. How do you account for holidays that typically fall on those Monday labs? Is the bulk editing function the way to go?
Yeah, so I find I put the first start date of the semester and it generally gets us in the ballpark, but then I just double check on the bulk edit. And if you bulk edit your template first before copying, those dates do stick. And so I think I didn't mention that. If you bulk edit your template once before you start copying, those dates do stick. But I'm super type A, and so I have a due date box so that after I copy them, I just click real quickly on each of the folders and make sure that the due dates are correct. So you really only have to bulk edit the due dates one time on your template before you copy your course. Then when you copy your course, I just double check the due dates. I won't have to bulk edit again. But you do have to publish each time that you copy. Hope that answers that. Any other questions at the moment?
Nope, I just answered another one within the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Okay, perfect.
You're good to go.
So this, yeah, you bet. So this will probably make a little bit more sense now that we've kind of stepped through that process. So before I start doing anything for the semester, I take our course enrollment sheet and I list each course that's going to need a visible body course in courseware. Then I go into Visible Body Courseware, I bulk edit the template for the due dates, and then I start copying the courses. And I do this process one time in full before I start the next one. So I don't just copy all the courses and then go through. I do everything in order, but either would work. So I copy the course and then I make sure that I have corrected the name. So you can do that on your copy or afterwards in editing your course info. I add the logo. I make sure that the due dates in the course copied correctly from the template. And if there were any adjustments for holidays, you might catch that, you know, the second or third time through. And then I publish all of the assignments. I jot down the visible body course ID. And then I mark off so I remember that I have sent the instructor the link to that course so that they link it to their My Courseware courses. And then it's their responsibility to link it to the learning management system. And then this last box complete is what I do basically this Saturday or Sunday before the semester starts. I go back into courseware. I look at each of the courses for the upcoming semester, and I make sure I see the faculty or lab instructor's name next to mine, and that little red book is now showing that they've linked it to Canvas. And at that point, I give it a final check off. And then before, when I'm setting up my sheet, I go to our course calendar that we've developed for the semester. I just jot down the labs and the due dates on here as well so that I quickly have that as a reference. All of our assignments are due at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. So I just make myself a little reminder there while I'm bulk editing. And then the release date, I always just make the release date the day and time that I'm copying the classes because we give our students access to all of the material up front so that they can work as quickly as they like through there. So I don't really worry about a release date on there unless we're doing something mid-semester or somebody's deleted a course or we're doing something strange that we have to fix there. So that's the basic process for going through our courses. A couple quirks that I've noticed is when you copy a course, you as the person who's copying it are the only person on the course. We did do a test to see if we could force it to copy over with 2 or more people still on the course, and it won't. It just retains the person that's doing the copying. So unfortunately, if you do have like an assistant or a lab aide who you would like to always also be on the courses, you just have to send them the invite link as well. We talked about having the letter A on the templates so that you can get to that. And then also probably the biggest thing I ran into is just developing this little list of things that you need to check as you're going. The next thing I wanted to talk about, if we don't have any questions about that, anyone have questions before we move on?
I think we're good
okay.
So far. So
awesome. So the next thing is what exactly it is that we're copying in courseware for face-to-face labs. So let me pop back into courseware. Or actually, before I do that, I want to put a plug in for the augmented reality labs. There we go. And share. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay, so for our face-to-face labs, one component that was really important for us to incorporate, and we already assigned this in the online labs, is the augmented reality lab activities that Visible Body has already developed for all of us to use. We are big fans. Can you guys still see me okay? Because I do see my light just went off.
Are we okay, Courtney? Sorry, I was muted. Yes, you were fine.
No, that's okay. All right. Yes, I see I have light. Okay. It's not, since you can still see me, it's not worth me getting up to go move our light around. Oh, cost savings. That's great though. Okay. So we really enjoy the augmented reality lab activities. And when the students are exposed to them and know how to use them correctly, they really quite like them as well. So if you haven't seen these yet, reach out to your rep and have them show you where to find them. They're just in the instructor resources. And they maybe don't look like much, but a fillable worksheet until you print and actually start working with them. So each of these images that are generated from the Atlas app function as almost like a fancy QR code. So students can use these at home for an online course. And if they have an augmented reality device, something like a cell phone or a tablet that is augmented reality, they'll be able to access these that way. But in our face-to-face labs, what we've done is created what we're going to call the Visible Body iPad Station. So our department secured funding for 11 iPads at each of our campuses that we can have a small group learning station using the iPads to work with Visible Body. So we realized that even though a lot of students have augmented reality capable cell phones and tablets, they don't spend the time at home on their own to set up and learn to use the augmented reality feature. So we're really excited that students who come to campus face-to-face will not only learn to use that technology so that they're using their Visible Body subscription to the fullest, but also we're reaching students who don't have augmented reality capable devices and still giving them that more sophisticated experience with the product. So they'll come to lab, one of the stations they'll go to, they'll sit down. Here, this picture showing you a tablet, but they will actually open up that worksheet, and the worksheet, they'll use the tablet to scan the heart, and then it will pull it up in augmented reality right in front of them, and then they'll be able to complete the activity. So we're going to print each of these augmented reality worksheets. We'll laminate them so that we're not eliminating tons of paper. And then we'll have those sitting at the stations with the iPad so that the students can go ahead and use those. So there's not an augmented reality worksheet for every single body system, but we'll use them for the ones that there are. And of course, we're still going to use the Visible Body for the other body systems as well, just in a different way. So something you might want to consider, and one thing that we're going to use Visible Body for when we come back to campus, is Prelabs. So Visible Body does have a bunch of pre-built Prelab quiz exercises in their quiz bank, but we actually are taking some of our assignments out of courseware and assigning those in our learning management system. So they'll still be housed in courseware, but when students click on their pre-lab in our learning management system, it will tell them, go to Visible Body and complete everything in the folder for Prelab 4. They'll complete activities that are related to the hands-on things we'll be doing in class that day. When they come to lab, they have already gotten that background information from using Visible Body before they come to lab. And then things that are specifically anatomy related is that what we're going to use Visible Body for in our face-to-face lab. So we'll use the iPads, even if it's not for an augmented reality worksheet. We'll assign anatomy identification assignments where they'll open Atlas and find the body parts. But along with the iPads, we'll have our plastic models, and then we'll have our plastinated cadavers sitting right next to it so that they find the structure not only on the model in Atlas, but they'll find it on the plastic model and also on the plastinated cadaver prosection as well, to really solidify that in all three of those modalities. And then we also have computer stations in our lab, and so they'll be able to use those computers to access any kind of assignments that we've made in courseware as well. So we'll have them do some practice quizzes out of the A&P app and things like that. One activity we're very excited about is the muscle movements using the iPads for our muscle labs. So we envision using the iPads in the exact same way Visible Body demonstrates, where we will have one student with the iPad, a student in front of them, along with the muscle movement image that Visible Body has generated, and they will have the student mimic the motion right along with Visible Body in that augmented reality experience. So those are a few ways that we're going to bring Visible Body courseware into our face-to-face labs as well. Courtney, Matt, questions? Anything you want to add?
There's one question from Timothy about the AR labs, and I do believe, Timothy, the answer is yes, but I just wanted to clarify before I gave you a definite answer. His question was, can the AR lab activities be printed in black and white? And I'm almost positive that the answer is yes.
I'm pretty sure it is yes, but
yeah, I haven't tested it, so that is a really good question. But since it functions like a QR code, I am imagining tech-wise that the color is irrelevant because the majority of QR codes are black and white. And I do know too, for your online students, and this we have tested, they can actually take their tablet or cell phone and hold it up to the augmented reality image on the worksheet on their computer screen, and it will pull up that way as well. Good question.
Yes. So, yeah, that was it so far. So.
Okay, perfect. Matt, Courtney, do you guys have anything else that you want me to chat about?
I actually did. Now, when you and I had spoken last week, the week before, I don't actually remember how days work. So,
yeah.
But you had actually mentioned the grants that you had applied for.
Oh, yes. So a few things on grants related to Visible Body. Our university has a pool of funds that's an annual grant that we were able to pull from. And so I would start, of course, on your university campus looking at grants that people are pulling from on an annual basis. So a lot of those have a component built into them where you have to be showing some sort of use of technology. And so any grant that mentions technology is probably going to be a good fit for submitting to get iPads, storage carts, charging carts, and things to create a Visible Body iPad station. For healthcare specifically, if you're teaching pre-medical field type classes, one thing that we wrote into the last grant to get our storage cart and our charging cart for the iPads was the link to the way health professionals use mobile technology in their workplace. So because a lot of healthcare systems and patient medical records and charts are being done now on actual iPads or tablets, we took advantage of that to write it in that not only is it being used for A&P, but it's exposing these pre-healthcare professionals to using that mobile technology so that they become more comfortable having multiple tabs open on a tablet, using augmented reality, being able to work on a mobile device, since we're not really, or we're getting away more from having computers on rolling carts that go from room to room to room. And I think we'll see less of that too now with the COVID experiences. And having those standalone computers in each patient's room is kind of going away, I think, as each healthcare provider has their own tablet to access patient records and patient charts. And so we wrote it in to the grant that was one of the benefits, is that providing grant money for the Visible Body iPad station was going to start training students in technology that was going to be useful in the workplace. because a lot of grants have that component that how's it going to improve careers and commercial applications for job employment down the road.
We have a question from Stephanie, and Matt, you might be able to answer this better than I could since I'm more on the content side. How does licensing work of purchased iPads?
So we do, I'm just trying to think. So we don't sell seat licenses anymore, but we do sell site licenses. So with a site license, your institution would be able to access the content via the web, but also you would have a mobile download that you could put onto an iPad. Typically these are annual, but I would say definitely a site license of the application. So you could have a site license of one of the apps or multiple apps. But Stephanie, I could definitely provide you pricing after this call.
And courseware as well, obviously. Has
courseware as well,
downloads.
yeah. Yeah, typically courseware is used with instructors for the grading aspect of it, and creating quizzes and homework assignments based off of the content from our 5 applications.
Okay.
Cool.
While people are thinking of other questions, I will show you one more thing that I thought of that might be useful to share. Let's see. Just so that people, again, benefit from my mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes I did. So because we have an online version of the lab and a face-to-face version of the lab, I mentioned that we needed to scale back that face-to-face version because they will be putting in that 2 hours of time on campus. And the first iteration of that face-to-face lab that I made a kind of a critical error. So I started going through and deleting from my template in courseware items that we were going to have the students complete in lab, or items that we felt like were just going to take too much time that the students could always access later if they wanted to. And then I quickly realized that was not the way to go. So you can see what I've done here now is taken anything that we're going to be doing either in the face-to-face lab during lab time or have deleted from the lab just due to time, and just retitled that assignment as optional and put it down here as a non-points bearing activity. So students will still have the option to complete that. And when they click on it, it will tell them that it's just for practice, or it will tell them that it's an assignment that we're going to have them complete in lab. So the assignment below will be completed in lab. It's provided here for additional study outside of lab. So I've labeled those now as optional assignments that they can still have access to via courseware and go, oh, I want to redo that activity that I did in Atlas when I was in lab, and they'll be able to find those activities down here. So here's an anatomy ID assignment that I mentioned how we'll be doing those in the face-to-face lab. But if they want to continue practicing that within the Atlas app, they can come down here and find those exact views that we had them use at the iPad station in lab. Or if it's something that we're going to cover in a different way in the face-to-face lab and maybe not use Visible Body for that, except for the online students, they can always come in here and complete those optional assignments and still get that content and experience as well. What I would do if it didn't mean I was redoing multiple assignments across 20 labs that I've already created, I would actually retitle that this time around and call it suggested. So instead of optional activities, I would call it suggested, because I do think as soon as students see the word optional, they are not going to click on it. So maybe down the road, we'll redo that and call it suggested. And then when they click on that, they'll see, oh, this is something I'm going to do in lab. Maybe I won't spend the time on that now. But we did come to the conclusion it was going to be important for them to still be able to access those activities in the version we have them in courseware, even though they'll be completing them in lab. Because I'm not the least bit worried about it. If students want to get ambitious and go ahead and do that before they come, and then just whiz through it again at the iPad station during their face-to-face time, that's fine by me. The more exposure they get to it, the better.
All right. We actually have a raised hand. So, so this is Luis, and I am going to unmute him so we can.
Oh, yes.
Yay.
Hi, Pamela. Can you guys hear me?
You know, you were the impetus behind this office hours. I was like,
Yeah.
here's an idea.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, I did learn something from this round as well. So thank you.
Outstanding. Good.
My question is about the Prelab assignments.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like you're using those as graded assessments before they come to lab. You're going to be using it that way. But do you have the due date as prior to their arrival in class? Is that how you're
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
okay.
question, because I'm sure a lot of you are from larger schools too, where space is in high demand, and our anatomy and physiology lab is used for actually 3 different courses. So both semesters of A and P, as well as our pathophysiology lab. So we essentially run labs in our lab space from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, with just slightly fewer labs on Monday mornings. And students can register for any combination of lecture time and lab that fits their schedule based on what we're offering. And so we will make all pre-lab assignments for all lectures due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. so that all students, regardless of whether their labs on Friday or Wednesday or Monday morning, will have that completed before they come. So yeah, so for the face-to-face labs in fall, we will set all of those to the Sunday before the lab. So if lab 14 is the week of November 3rd, starting November 3rd, the pre-lab for that lab will be due November 2nd.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
We have a question from Timothy, who is curious how your department handles in-person versus online assessment and examinations. Online students have advantages that his small college can't police, that in-person students don't have.
Yeah, so during the COVID transition, our university started using the Proctorio proctoring service for exams. Our department does unit quizzes that are open book, and then we do midterm and final exams that are the closed book proctored exams for the course. And so if students rely on those open book quizzes, it will show by the time they get to the midterm and final proctored exams that their studying wasn't on par. So we use those unit quizzes based on the body systems that they take as almost more of a formative exercise where they complete the quiz and have the opportunity to review the questions that they missed, and then they go back to their course materials to hopefully find the answers to those so that they are preparing for the closed book proctored examinations. We are actually going to be shifting to doing all quizzing and testing within our learning management system, and that proctoring service integrates into our learning management system, so we will do that. What has really made that possible, and I have nothing to do with this, so no claim to fame here, but our department has an extensive question bank. So it's not uncommon for a unit quiz to have a question bank of over 200, 300 questions that students are delivered 50 from. And then when we combine those question banks into a midterm or final, we're talking in the thousands of questions. And so there are definitely varying academic opinions about that, but one school of thought is, let's say our question bank got out there. By the time a student memorizes the answers to 2,000 questions, they have potentially then learned the material. So there might be an argument against that, in fairness, for things like images and graphics where they need to apply knowledge. But Yeah, we use large question banks and then timed tests to help with some of that. So our face-to-face and online students will have actually identical examination experiences.
And Timothy, just kind of to follow up on that, we have a pretty comprehensive blog article that talks about how you can use courseware to ensure academic integrity. And I can link to that blog post in tomorrow's follow-up email.
Yeah, and that's one of our favorite features about using those graded quizzes with our lab assignments is we've selected to allow students multiple attempts, unlimited attempts until the due date. So we are trying to encourage them to go back in, and for several of the quizzes that we've created or generated using the visible body questions, a combination, some of theirs, some of our own, we're using pooled question banks in quite a lot of our lab quizzes as well. And so I want students to go back in and do another attempt, even if they got 100%, to get exposed to those other questions within the pool for their lab assignments.
So you encourage it. I mean, have you noticed any improvement in student performance if they do?
So it's probably too early for us to tell on there, but we put right on the top of the assignment instructions that multiple attempts are allowed and that their highest score will be delivered to the grade book in the learning management system. And it is disappointing how often students will score, you know, like 1 out of 3 and not retake it. But we think once we're in the face-to-face environment, we'll probably be able to explain and encourage that more. There are just those nuances with technology where you can develop as many guides as you want and put in videos into your courses. And it's all about whether they retain that or not. So we're excited that students can come into lab and we can remind them, don't forget to do your pre-lab invisible body before you come next week. And remember, you have multiple attempts. So there's no reason you shouldn't be getting your full points on that before you come. And so I think a lot of that is going to improve being back to the face-to-face environment. I'm sure you guys all experienced that where you get to the end of the semester and students claim that they had no idea about different aspects of your course and what was happening as you went through COVID.
All right, so we have 8 minutes left. Does anybody else have any questions for Pamela?
And we can do stuff outside of lab and templates too. Luis, what did you and I talk about that I forgot this time?
Actually, we have a question from Luritha. Will you be hosting more office hours? So Pamela has actually hosted a couple of them. Yeah, which you can find on our YouTube channel. And again, I will be linking those in tomorrow's email. But we would always love to have Pamela come back.
Yeah.
But we have had different professors from different universities in different states do office hours, and we also host webinars ourselves to talk more in depth about technical aspects and the content that we offer. So we are always hosting a whole bunch of stuff. And actually next week we will be hosting a webinar on technology. So all of the weird technical questions that you probably have or have been too afraid to ask, we will be answering those next week. So
perfect. Okay, I just took asking Luis that question to remind me of one other thing we had chatted about. Let me share my screen here. And this actually speaks to courseware, whether you're using it for lab or just your courses, and if you're setting up a course in courseware to be your template for your A&P class. Once a graded quiz has been assigned and published to a course in courseware, it can no longer be edited. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that and have discovered that. And that's tricky for us because we have so many sections of the courses running all of the time. There's no way I could go back in and unpublish those quizzes from multiple sections. So what I've discovered works for me is as I'm fixing questions that we want to delete, or we want to add a question, or we are no longer covering a topic and there are questions in the quiz for that, I've realized that if I have that template course, it's easy for me to edit that for the next semester as the current semester is running. So in the quiz bank, I will just clone a previous version of the quiz that's currently being used, and then I can edit it for the next semester. And so consider when you start doing that process, what kind of a naming convention that you want to use. So I've started putting the semester that this is intended for, and then the version being the year. So I've got that constantly going. And then I'll just go into my course and I'll edit that assignment content with that new version of the graded quiz. So I would just go in here to edit the assignment content, and I would replace this dissection quiz with the version for the next semester of that same year. So I don't always have to do that, but if we've found an error in a quiz or we're no longer covering that content and I need to delete it out of the quiz, you cannot do that once that graded quiz has been assigned to a course and published. And so I find that I'm having to just clone and edit the quizzes as we go. And I'm really happy that we're operating on templates in courseware for that reason, because instead of having a big to-do list in between semesters, I'm getting that work done simultaneously as we run through the semester. So I don't have a list that says, oh, don't forget, go back into Lab 8 and edit that quiz on, you know, the 5 days between semesters. So that's helpful too. Okay. Any other questions, Courtney, Matt?
I don't think so. We have 4 minutes left. So if you
Okay,
have questions, now's the time.
We're excited. I'm sure like a lot of you are to be getting back to campus and seeing the students face to face. And the feedback we got from students the last semester using courseware was phenomenal. We did a student survey where there was an essay type question, and a lot of the students took the time to actually write in to that essay question how much they enjoyed Visible Body, what a good resource it was for them, how much they felt like it was crummy they weren't on campus seeing the cadavers, but at least they had that virtual experience. And so the feedback we've gotten using Visible Body so far has been so good that we're really excited to see the feedback once face-to-face students are shown even more of the capabilities and have the opportunity to really see just how robust the program is.
Oh, that makes me so happy. That's so validating.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Haiti. She is new to courseware and would like some recommendations on what to look for, watch out for. Any tips and tricks that you can think of off the top of your head?
That's a good question. Let me pop into courseware and see. I think something that is commonly overlooked, and this actually might be what the other attendee was going to share, is putting in your university or course logo. So I'll pull that up again and I'll show you what that does for your quizzes. Because I know I got really excited when I got to see that. Share my screen here. There we go. So I think having your university logo really makes the courseware system look like it wasn't an afterthought. So even though we all know it's not an afterthought, I think sometimes using the products that publishers provide make it look less customized, that it's an afterthought that the faculty didn't really even go in and edit or think about. When you add that logo and students go to take a quiz, it actually shows that logo right there, prominent. So I feel like they know they're getting a quiz that the faculty has been through the questions on, and know the students can have the confidence of knowing that the content they're being quizzed on is directly related to the learning objectives that we have in the class. And they see that logo and they get that consistency across your, campus campaigns and your university marketing. So I do like that. If you're still using a publisher, reach out to your rep and make sure that you have the courseware course that was built off of that publisher's book. So they have them for all of the major anatomy and physiology textbooks already pre-built. And then you could easily just go in and delete content that doesn't apply. We have a pretty specialized A&P course, I think, compared to most of the textbooks out there. And so most of our content is created. We went in and created and selected it, but I do think that's an easy, quick way to get rolling with courseware, is to just use the pre-built course that Visible Body has that goes along with the publisher website. The reason I say we're unique is we teach chemistry and a little bit of microbiology and macromolecules, biochem as part of our A&P course. So most campuses, I think, don't do that.
Okay, well, it is 4:01, so we're a little bit over. Before we go, Timothy, I heard back from a member of my team, because I wanted to make sure that the AR labs could be printed in black and white, and they super can. So the AR feature actually doesn't recognize color at all. It's developed in grayscale. So, yep. Color irrelevant, so color neutral maybe, but you're good. All right, so if we don't have any further questions, I think we can release you all back into the world.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. And Pamela, thank you so much for.
My pleasure. Sorry about the lighting. They're doing construction behind my office. And so
we're amazing as always. Thank you.
I'll go find a quiet space, but didn't think about the lighting in here would shut off on us. So sorry about that.
There's always something.
So